So the other day in our group call, we talked about the power of being a beginner, and it's one thing that I think so many people misunderstand in their fitness journey and in the process of them getting back to a place that they want to get back to. See, a lot of people, whether they were just kids and were healthy because of their youth, or whether they were athletes, former Division One athletes in college, or used to just have a healthier lifestyle and healthier habits and used to go to the gym, and at some point along the way got away from that, regardless of like where you're at, regardless of what your backstory is and the level of fitness that you had previously, getting back to a place of health and wellness, getting back into a good routine with your lifestyle, with your habits, with your physique, your self-image, your confidence, there's going to be a process. There's going to be a prolonged period of time where you feel like a beginner. Okay, because if you're starting here, for example, and you want to lose, say, 30 pounds of weight, that's not going to happen overnight. So you're going to be confronted with feelings of maybe doubt. You're going to be confronted with a desire to be further along in this process, right? You're going to wish you were at the end goal. You're going to wish you had the physique, you had the lifestyle, you had the habits. And that period, that phase of this training, the beginning phase, involves a lot of mental turmoil and a lot of thoughts of just being a beginner. And it's such a great place to be in. It's such an opportunity to grow as not only a physical person, but also just in your mindset and in your mentality as well. So what we talked about in this group call was how when we're a beginner, when we're at the bottom of this hill, right? If this hill that you need to climb, it's not the last hill you'll ever climb, right? But if at the top of this hill, the result, the achievement that you want to get is, say, losing 30 pounds, you're at the bottom. You're at the very starting block of this race, or at the very bottom of this hill. And the inevitable fact of the matter is that you need to accept where you're at. You need to accept that you're at the bottom of this hill and accept the inevitable climb that's waiting for you. One of the first things that I tell people in overcoming setbacks, and why I have credibility doing this is I had an accident 4 years ago that almost took my life. I was electrocuted by a power line. The electricity actually went out of my hands here, entered my shoulder, went out of my hands. I fell off the roof 15 feet. It was a 2-year process coming back to my health. When I got out of the hospital after those first 4 weeks, I was at the very beginning. And the mentality I had going into this process was to just get reps in, to just literal and figurative reps, right? The things that I focused on were trail running, just to clear my mind and to have some time to myself and to collect my thoughts and just to be with myself and in nature and pushing myself. And then also the gym, right? Getting reps in the gym, getting physically stronger. I lost like 40 pounds in that process. Felt extremely weak mentally and physically, and I just needed to get back to a level of strength. What I'm trying to say is getting those sometimes blind reps, I call them, like reps that don't actually feel like they're amounting to something, reps where you don't actually feel like you're getting anything done. You know how we've all had this moment where you go to the gym and you get done and you feel so great that you went and worked out. At the beginning, there might be some of those, but they're not always, there won't always be these great feelings of success and of victory and achievement. There's going to be a lot of moments where you just continually kind of doubt this process and don't even feel entirely enthusiastic about this outcome or about this process that you're on, this hill that you're climbing. So blindly just getting reps, what I mean by that is just ignoring your feelings, ignoring your emotions, ignoring the fact that you just want to stay at home and maybe eat chips or put on a, Game of Thrones episode or whatever it is that you do to cope or to numb your mind, ignoring that and just blindly almost saying, okay, fuck it, I'm doing this, right? Just like ignore all of the surface level bullshit that's happening, get in the car, get to the gym. That's a rep. And at the beginning of this process, you suck, right? You have not been doing this. You have not been, practicing this habit. So there's no reason to expect that you're going to be good at this. So if we can understand, I'm not going to be good at this process. I'm not going to be a great at just getting in the gym. I'm not going to be great at tracking my food. I'm not going to be great at getting my steps. What I need is to just get reps. And I need to do that in the face of doubt, in the face of lack of confidence, in the face of tiredness, in the face of laziness. I need to do that blindly by masking all of that shit and just going and getting the rep. That is what's so important, especially at the beginning of this process. And some of the other things we talked about were, just how much freedom, just how much room for improvement. The analogy I gave was like when I got really into chess, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was like I uncovered a whole new world because there was quite literally an infinite amount of outcomes, of game strategies, of openings, of positions, of attacks, of defenses, it was limitless. And I felt like I was dropped into this gigantic ocean of knowledge, of information, of potential outcomes, and I was just trying to soak all of that up. And if you have that mentality of open hands, of an open mind, and like a sponge-like willingness to accept new information, you're going to set yourself up for so much success because it's so easy to just get closed-minded and get into your own head and not enjoy this process, and really sometimes even learn to hate this process because you don't like where you're at, which is valid. That's why you're trying to change, because you don't like where you're at. But instead of staying on the fact that I don't like where I'm at, if I can release my grip, not try to not white knuckle this process where you're just trying to hold on to everything so tightly. If you can open your hands, have a little bit more open mindset and open mentality to say, okay, I'm at the beginning of this process. I'm at the bottom of this hill. I don't like where I'm at. I want to get to that point. I want to get over this hump. I want to get around this obstacle. I want to get through or over this setback in my life, whether it's an injury, divorce, relationship problems, money problems, right? Life's just kicking you in the nuts. Like you're just getting punched left and right by friends, family, life, whatever. If you can just say, these are the facts, but all I have in my control is to, handle this and understand that the only thing that's really in my control is my reaction to these problems, because likely there's some things that are out of your control that are just out of your control. You can't control them, but all you can do is control your reaction to them. If we can say, okay, my reaction to these problems is 100% in my control. Let me have that open mindset, open hand policy, if you will, and learn as much as I possibly can to get out of this. Instead of saying, this sucks, I hate this, I hate myself, I hate my scenario, my situation, the world is shit, right? It's this internal and external locus of control, whether we think that life is happening to us, whether we think that life is out of our control, or whether we kind of take matters into our own hands, an internal locus of control, which is to say that I am in control of my future, I am in control of what happens to me. But realistically, it's more I am in control of how I respond and react to certain situations, which is more realistic and factual, because you can't always control the things that happen in life, especially if it's, regarding other people and how they're acting and how they're behaving. All you really have is how you respond. And if we take this approach of an open mindset where I say, okay, I can't control these variables. Life sucks right now, but I can control how I react, and let me learn more. Let me become a learner and have a sponge-like retention to the things and the information that's going to help me. Okay? If we have that mentality, we're setting ourselves up for so much success, and it's hard to have that mentality, right? Those are just words, right? Yeah, just learn as much as you possibly can. When you're overcoming a rough place in your life, the last thing you're really thinking about is let me learn more about my situation. All you're thinking about is how much this sucks. I get that. I've been in that place. I've been in that hospital bed. I've been in that counseling session with a therapist. Like I'm aware of the mind. I'm aware of the mindset that one might have in a bad place. Okay, maybe I haven't been in your exact situation, but I'm aware of the negative mindset, the woe is me mentality. Not so much I'm a victim, but I do know a lot of people that have this victim mentality, you're probably not watching this video if you have this complete victim mentality, woe is me. Like, if you got to this point in the video, you probably understand that to get out of where you're at, you're going to have to take some serious change. Okay? So I'm not necessarily talking to people that have this woe is me, because a lot of times those people don't actually change. They don't actually take matters into their own hands, and they don't actually adopt this mentality of learning. But if we can, and I know it's not easy to, but if we can get out of our head, get out of our emotions, if we can even temporarily do that, we set ourselves up for so much success. And it's a hard process, because when you're in a setback, right, when you're in a period of life that sucks, that you don't want to be in, and you want to lose the weight, you want to overcome this struggle, you want to get back in shape, and you want to be a better example for your family, you want to accomplish this thing just to prove it to yourself that you can, that you have the confidence, that you have the physique, the physical body to overcome this, this pain or struggle or whatever it is, whatever this reason that you need to do this is. If you can lean into that, then you can understand that this process is going to involve going further into discomfort than you would actually like. I call it like this cave. Like, if you're in a dark place, if you're in a bad place, it doesn't have to be a dark place. You can just want to lose 10 more pounds. Well, that's an uncomfortable place to be at, because the first things first, you have to accept that, hey, I don't entirely love the way I look. Let's start there. Or I don't entirely love the way I feel, or I'm not entirely proud of the physical things that I can do, right? I'm not entirely proud of, my level of physical fitness. I want to be able to play with my kids, and I can't right now. I'm gassing out after 10 minutes. We have to accept that first. And that's uncomfortable. But to get out of this process, you have to accept and embrace even more discomfort. And you have to go deeper into this cave of discomfort to get to a point where you can see the light on the other side and then get through. But it's, for some people, this can be a really dark process. Maybe it is for you. But to go deeper into this cave, you're almost venturing into like darker and darker territory where less and less, and it feels more and more uncertain, and you're doing things and questioning, why am I even doing this? Is this even paying off? That is this beginning process where you just doubt, is this even worth it? Can I even do this? Do I even know what I'm doing? Am I doing the right thing? Why am I doing all this? And you will constantly have to come back to a place where you remind yourself where you are and where you want to be, and then to understand that the gap between where you want to be and where you are is your room for growth. Because if nothing changes right now, you stay the same. That sucks. You don't want to be where you're at now in 6 months. But to change, to lose the 30 pounds, to be able to play with your kids, to run the race, to come across that finish line, to build the confidence mentally that you really want, that you've been lacking for years, you're going to have to push yourself into discomfort to climb this metaphorical hill and to get to this place where you actually want to be. And that's going to involve going deeper into a cave of discomfort and doing things you just don't really want to do, and confronting doubt, confronting lack of confidence, confronting so many things that for so long you've just been coping and numbing, right? Whether you just put on the TV, whether you take a glass of beer, whether you just go out and hang with your friends, you put on the game, you throw a bet you throw a parlay up on the game just to feel something, to feel alive. Doesn't matter what your coping is. Maybe you just ignore it. Maybe you just sleep all day. Doesn't matter what it is. Getting to where you want to be is going to involve sacrificing some of that and doing things that are genuinely uncomfortable, right? Pushing into levels of discomfort that previously you didn't. You're going to feel like a beginner doing that. There's going to be doubt. There's going to be lack of confidence. You're going to question whether this is even worth it. You're going to question, why am I doing this? You're going to question, what the fuck am I actually doing? But if you stick with it long enough, if you keep putting those blind reps in, the reps that you feel like, I'm not even getting anything done, what the fuck am I doing? It's if you can stick through those reps long enough, then you can actually get to a point where you start to see some results. It's the same way with my clients. Months 1 and 2, I've had so many clients come to me and question like, dude, what are we even doing? Sometimes it's longer than that, to be honest. And then they get to a point where they've really put in the reps and they've really built up the habits with things like steps and protein intake and lifting in the gym 3 times per week. and they get to a point where they've done it so long and they got through those reps where they were questioning and wondering, is this even worth it? And then they text me and they're like, dude, I'm down 5 pounds, or I'm down 5 kilos, or I'm down, 15 pounds, like whatever it is. And then it's all worth it now. No longer are they questioning, is this worth it? No longer are they questioning, what am I doing? Now it's crystal clear. It's like a light bulb moment, like, okay, now I get why I was doing this. Now it makes sense. Because up until now, I was just kind of doing shit just to do shit. And it didn't really feel like I was getting anywhere. That's what I'm trying to say. That's going to be a part of this process. Be a beginner. Embrace being a beginner. We don't like doing things we're not good at. It's a very normal thing. That's why so many people are so hesitant to go and try the new group fitness class, to go and try the new sport, to try out for the team, to go learn the instrument, to go up to the girl. We don't like doing things we're not good at. But it's only in, there's a quote, where your fear is, there your task is. It's only in confronting that fear, it's only in taking that risk that we can actually, it's only in putting in those blind reps that after a certain period of time, we can actually look back and understand why it was all worth it. But it's not until we do that. It's not until we face and confront that fear and doubt. It's not until we take that risk. Again, it's not until we perform those blind reps that we can actually get to that point. Be a beginner. Have an open hand policy, an open mindset when it comes to learning. Understand you're at the beginning of this process. You're not going to like it. It's not going to be fun. But it's worth it if you can keep putting the reps in and eventually get to a point where you can look back and say, okay, now the results are starting to pay off. And I'm glad that I started, and I'm glad I stuck through this instead of starting and stopping like I have in the past. That's it.